Good morning and welcome to the presentation for English Module 1. The presenter, Mrs. Unique Limwena France. My phone number is there. Should there be anybody who would like to contact me? The email address is also there. And this time around, I made time to provide students with the consultation hours. Please, let's stick to it so that you can get assisted. We'll start to have an overview of the American and the British language. American and British, not language, but it has to be English. Okay. We are actually looking at how English spread via Africa continent. Of course, we know language goes along with the activities that takes place in a particular continent, in a particular country, in a particular institution. Wherever you find people, you find language. Okay, and that means the activities that they do, they are actually facilitated by the language that they speak. Now, the point here is how English language spread to Africa. Africa continent. As I said earlier that within the continent of Africa, there has been activities that have been taking place, and therefore they facilitate how English spread in Africa. For instance, in those days, and even now, you find out that missionaries has been observed where they take Christianity to different countries in Africa, of which Namibia was not excluded. So Christianity, missionary are part of the factors responsible for the spread of English language within Africa continent. Same apply, we have a point known as trade. People had been carrying out trade. They had to exchange, they had to sell, they had to market out their product. And in the end, you know, they increase economies of different countries. And in that case, language spread because you can't sell without communicating to the next person. Okay, or else you cannot market your product without communicating to the next person. And by doing so, people had been using words, and by using words, the English language has been expanding, and it has been going to different parts of the African continent. Education is one of the factors which is responsible still for the spread of the English language. We have to lecture, we have to communicate, we have to do assessment. During the education process, there should be questions from students to lecturer, and in that case, you realize that English language is carried on via that process known as education. The printing of books. Of course, in academia, students have to read in books. They have to get information from books, and they also have that right for them to write out their own book if they wish to. So in that case, as we keep on printing books, like for instance in Namibia, English is recognized as a foreign language, but however, it is also accepted as an official language where the government made it a mandate that we have to communicate our official means through the English language. So in so doing, you realize that our books, they are also printed in the English language, and as we read, and as we tell what we read, and as we make use of what we read, we are facilitating the spreading of the English language via books. Okay. So when you look at this topic, you can read more in detail as to how different countries, you know, encounter with others to facilitate the spread of the English language via Africa. Process might differ, but all what I can conclude on is just that many countries they were involved in common processes of making sure that the English language reach everybody, direct or indirect, because when they were doing this activity, some of them, they were not even aware that they are spreading the English language. It's just to find out, oh, you guys, you are also using these books. Oh, you guys, oh, you also do trade in this way, or you trade this product, or I want this, or I can sell that, and so do not forget slavery, because in history slaves has been sent there, and those who receive them, of course, whatever you drop at the table of the next person, I would make it like that whatever you drop at the table of the next person, and whatever you tell the next person, as long as you make use of the English language, you are responsible for spreading of the English language. Okay. Then we go to say that how was the English language accepted, especially now in Namibia? How was it accepted in Namibia by the year 1990 and before 1990 and after 1990? Because English was taken differently. Remember, history has it documented that English is a foreign language, but yet we find ourselves, we use it as an official language. A language for official communication, official documentation, official lecturing. Any official activity require us to make use of English. Now let's see how was it accepted in Namibia before 1990. Meaning that before we get independent. Remember, Namibia was colonized by German, and it was also colonized by South Africa after it was handed in the hand of the South African to prepare us for our independence and so on. Let's see what happened. It says that during the colonization, English was imposed by the British government on their colonies. Remember, if a country finds itself as a colony for British, that means you have no choice but to make use of English language in your country. When colonies gained independence, it was then translated into policies and administration. Remember that for a language to be successfully used, there should be policies that emphasize make use of this, use this particular language. Otherwise, it will not be used, right? So you find out that in this case, the people at that time, the British government, say for instance, made it a mandate that English should be in use, all right? And for it to be in use, this is the policy. Like in Namibia, we have a language policy. This is a way to say that you must use English. If otherwise, then you are not obeying the rules and the regulation in place for language policy of that particular country. Okay? In Namibia, by 1981, a policy was put in place to make Namibia to make English as a second language. You can already hear for yourself that people use policies so that they can make the officials accountable. They can make the students accountable. Why are you not English in your work? Why are you not writing in the English language? You cannot deny the fact. The rule is there. And in that policy, they should be even to say, if you don't, this is the consequence. Okay. Namibia chooses English as a monolingual language as an attempt to achieve the liberation and unity. Remember, in the past, these are people from different countries. They get their mother tongue. And remember, most of the time, when a colonizer arrives, they make sure that their language become popular, their language become dominant over yours. Because remember, they are now the one on power. Language also goes with the issue of power. So, in this case, for them to win the game, they make it a monolingual as an attempt to achieve liberation struggle. It is only that language. Mono means one. It's only that language which is English to be used. Okay, and for it to be used, they want now unity. Remember, there are so many languages. Okay, and the policies emphasize that we should speak that particular language for us to understand each other and for us to be able to carry out activities as human beings, like education, like business, socialization, and so on. So it's unity and liberation that makes English to become a monolingual. That was before we gained independence. Let's see now what happened after 1990, when Namibia becomes a liberated, when Namibia gained its independence, when we have an issue of the constitution comes into being to give us those rights as Namibians, and of which I state that if you look into our constitution, which is the document, I have to mention it here because it's the one that gives us these rights today to say English is this, education is that. Article 20 states it clear, and from that article, it gives every Namibian right to education. What does it mean? When you talk about education, you cannot run away from English, because English being the first, being the official language in Namibia, is given that power and authority by that article, and therefore we move on now to use it in institution of higher learning like IOL. Okay. So take note that Namibia set rules which validates the quality. It validates the quality of English as a first language. Okay, so there were rules that were followed. That is how English was treated after independence. English was taken, or it was chosen. Remember, it is not a language that any other Namibians will own to say it is my mother tongue, right? But then we find it as a language chosen. Now the question is, why was it done in that way? Okay, so it says that English would unify people. Remember, it's a language that comes very far, and it passes different continents, and it arrives successfully in Namibia and elsewhere in the world. Many countries in the world make use of English. So people felt, the leaders at that time, they felt it's better we choose English because it will bring unity among people. And not to say, yeah, you. It's unity, not division. It is a previously colonized language. German and Africans, they were considered as language of the oppression. Therefore, English win over a case of it taking over, even though our colonizers, they were supposed, maybe say for instance, to choose German and Africans, but they couldn't choose this because of that reason. So English was a language for unity. It has a degree of familiarity. So people were familiar with English. Many people were familiar or are familiar with English. That's why it was chosen. English was also developed considering technology. It is a language that is developed considering technology. You find out that many printings and books were already documented and written in English, so it will be easier to make use of it. And some people already have that knowledge of English already, as compared to, other languages. So it took over. I know Africans was also there that time, but English then was, and our government, our government felt it is a language that they might have supporters from elsewhere in the world. So if they choose it, then they felt it would be a best choice, or they had made the best choice. Okay, so when you study further, you can read more about any other factors that is relevant to that, but otherwise I have spotted out on some. Still, we continue with English. We say that while we have English that we have chosen as our best language, right, there are some errors that are noted to occur in the English language. And then it was also noted reasons why those errors are there. Okay, remember, it's a language that comes from far, which is a second language. It's an official language in Namibia, but it's a second language. Okay, as much as we drill and we want proficiency in English language, it takes some time and it takes some time for people to get there. And as they are in the process of language learning, errors, okay, some errors are there. Reasons are there. It's a language for somebody else. I have learned it somewhere. Some people, are so reluctant to learn the correct terms. And so errors are there. Let's see what errors are in the English language and why they occur. Okay. One of the common errors in the English language is what you call the subject-verb agreement. Is one error. Another one, singular and plural forms. Another one, articles and full stops. The use of adjective and adverbs tenses and plural forms, spelling errors. You know, there is now that choice between the British and the Americans. Remember, these are two versions. And sometimes it's so hard for some people to pick up which form, although the choice in Namibia is that we should stick to the British English. Some people, they still mix up, okay, the British and the American English, and for that they make errors. I'm not going deep into these errors, okay, subject, verb, agreement, singular forms. I emphasize that you guys at your own time you read more. I'll proceed with reasons because we still have a lot of things to cover. Reasons why errors occur, okay. The reason why we have these errors is because there is a use of mother tongue in teaching primary. Remember, this comes from a rule emphasized in the language policy. In the Namibian language policy, the teachers are given that right to teach the children in their mother tongue at an early age. Remember, they are children, they are young, they have just learned to speak. It is not going to work out if we teach these young ones to really write. You are in grade 0 and you are teaching you already in English, unless you are from an English background family. Otherwise, we are failing the system. So with that now, there is a point now where these children should be taught again to learn in the English language as a medium of instruction as they continue with learning. And that shift, that shift caused some of the errors or imposed some of the errors into the English language. We have also the use of mother tongue as a medium of instruction, a negative attitude of learners toward learning English. We still have some kids who are like, yeah, why English if my mother tongue is so, if majority of Namibians of this type can speak this type of dialect, maybe Shikwanyama or Shindonga, and so why would I be compelled to speak English language? So some of them, they get that negative attitude, and as they go on, it contributes to the English language. At this point, we should not only put blames on the students alone, but when you look at the historical educational training for the educators, which are now the teachers and the lecturers, you would find out that the background was a disadvantage to them. And when you were taught by somebody who is not so proficient, you cannot tell me that you are perfect. The degree is there that some of the errors that we find might be imposed from the perspective of the educators. We are not saying 100%, but we are just saying that if you rate plus minus 5% or 10% of it could be from their side. The point that I would like to make here is just that as educators and the students, life is about learning and improving. We need to be positive, all of us. The system needs to be improved, because sometimes, we don't really blame them, but we can also put a question mark on the training. What training were offered, materials available, effort and their input, but as time goes, some of these errors, we hope they will decrease. Okay. Yeah, right. I think I have said enough on that. I move on to the slide talking about standard and non-standard language. What gives that difference? Okay. What gives that difference to say, no, you are now speaking the standard language and your language is non-standard? What does it mean? Okay. What does it mean? When the language is standard, it means that you use it correctly. You focus on the correct form. Remember, for English language, there's a recommended form. How should we write the language? We should follow the rules. For example, subject, verb, agreement rule, which are legitimacy, use of the verbal language when used in speech. We are not allowed to use the English language otherwise. Of course, I know it's a second language, but the point is we have to try our best to to obey the rules which are documented both in writing and in speech, then we say, aha, the language is standard, meaning that in a standard language there is defined rules, okay, both for written and verbal convention forms of language that should be maintained. They are already established. We have to maintain them. Okay, so that is a standard language. Okay, whereas when we say non-standard language, we meant someone, a particular language user, which is English, does not obey what I have stated. You are not following the rules. Okay, you are not using the correct forms. You are twisting the language somewhere in speech and in writing, and therefore that gives us the non-standard forms of English. Then we go to say why it is so important. What is the importance of standard language? Okay, remember, English is recommended for official occasion. So one of the importance is that it promotes what you call professionalism. Words are understood in the same way in all countries. Wherever you go, whether you are in Namibia, whether you are in America, wherever, you must use a form that everybody understands everywhere. And not to say this form is only understood in Namibia and this one is understood in America. Yet you are speaking the same language. No way. Okay, branding. Use words in brand, create an audience that your brand acquires target. Example, lactating milk. Sometimes we use language for branding, and therefore that it acquires a target. Everything that you use for branding, similarity is required and reality is required so that you attract your audience to buy your brand, say for instance. Okay. We are talking about language purity, perspective, and its importance. What does it mean? The language purity, it is just an idea. It is a process of recognizing one variety of a language as being pure and has high quality than the other varieties. However, it is just an idea because English can never be pure, right? It is a language that has many words which are borrowed, from other language to make up the English language we have today. So it has many words which are borrowed from other languages. That means English is a language. When you read the history of the English language, you learn that English, as it gets encountered with different language and with different users, it borrows some words from other languages, such as French, say for instance, such as German, and other languages. So it gives and picks. It borrows. There are times also the English people never had some words they have to borrow from others. Yeah, so that's why it's never pure. It's just an idea. Okay. So I think I can proceed. With the types of nouns. Okay. Until now, at the tertiary level, we still require you to master the types of nouns. I know you have been learning this, and sometimes you ask yourself, but why do they have to ask us this? We do have to ask you that because there is a need. We still need to emphasize on this knowledge of the types of nouns. To remind you, nouns, they can be common, proper, abstract, collective, countable, non-countable, singular, and plural form of nouns. Okay. Right. When nouns are proper nouns, they denote the place Okay, like Vinduk, a person named like Maria, yes, and they are capitalized. Or it's about an idea or a person. A noun can also be abstract, okay? Maybe let me spend time talking about the abstract, because this is where I pick up that students sometimes they don't get it right. An abstract noun is a noun, that you can mostly just imagine. You don't touch it like others type of nouns. You think about it, you imagine about it. These are nouns that we cannot see, we cannot hear, we cannot taste, smell, feel. For example, if I send you and say, go and get for me love, will you be able to get it? You will not. But you continuously say, I love, 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 happy, angry. Those are examples of the abstract noun. We just think about it, right? A noun can be collective, right? And when it's collective, these are nouns that describe two or more people, things, or an idea. Example, school. When we say collective, we refer to a group of. Okay, is it a group of what now are you referring to? Is it a school, a place where people go, or is it a swim, or there are so many names given to denote a collective groups of certain organisms. Say, for example, a head of cattle, a bunch of flowers, and so on. Noun can be countable and uncountable. The count nouns are nouns that can form both plurals and singular. Okay, we can count them, and as we count them, we know it's singular because it denotes one item, or we know it is plural, it denotes one item or more than two items, more than one item, I mean. And in writing, they are so visible that we identify them with a plural morpheme code. With a morpheme code S morpheme. Okay, so if it is many, we add the S. If it is not, we don't. Okay, and uncountable nouns as well. Okay, the uncountable noun, it is mostly, there are certain things that the rule of the English language state that they should be counted, some they shouldn't. You cannot count. You cannot count love. You cannot count freedom. You cannot count education. You cannot count sugar. Neither can you count salt. Okay? Neither can you count water, milk, wine, oil, coffee, rain. But you rather maybe, if you want to indicate that it's many, then you go for a different version of stating it. Okay, I think when I was looking at this, I have already explained the count, the plural nouns and the singular nouns. I advise you read further on it. Okay, read further on it. I may not be the best to explain it, but I have highlighted what it means. I move on with the type of pronouns. We were talking about nouns. Okay, as words we use for the identification of place, of things, idea, persons. Okay, that you would like to identify, whether proper or improper. But then there is a point where you do not want to mention the exact name of that place called Vinduk, or of that place called maybe you fill up with the village, your village, maybe, I don't know, of that place called Maria, or that place called Thomas. This case, if you do not want to mention them, you have to use a word called a pronouns, which is a noun that stands on behalf of a noun. Okay, so with their categories. Okay, the pronouns, they can be personal, possessive, reflective, demonstrative, relative, and indefinite. What does it mean? Let's quickly check what it means by personal pronouns. They tell us about the number of items, like gender, the person and animals, people and subject. With a particular person, they also refers to the animal, persons, or object. So those are personal pronouns. Okay. There are also pronouns called subjective pronouns, which they stand in the place of things. For example, I, you, he, she, it, they. Okay, some of them are called possessive. They demonstrate the ownership. Who owns that? They help us to show the possession in a sentence. Example, yours, theirs, it, his, hers, ours, mine, and so. There are also pronouns called reflexive pronouns. They refer back to the subject in the sentence. Okay. For example, the boy kicked himself. So, in that particular sentence, the boy kicked himself. Okay, you can see that there is a reflection back of who kicked the boy. It is himself. It refers back to the object, to the subject of the sentence, which is the boy. Okay, and we have also those ones that we call the demonstrative pronouns. They identify a noun without naming such nouns. They are very specific, like those books, these people, that particular ball, or whatever it is. Okay, so that gives us the demonstrative pronouns. And we also have the one that you call the relative pronouns. It provides more information about a person, or it connects a noun and a phrase. For example, whom, who, whose, what, where, whatsoever, whosoever. Example, people who are smart make things happen. Maybe it's you. I hope you are one of those that they're talking about. The smart people who make things happen. And finally, we have the indefinite pronouns. They replace a noun or other pronouns. For example, each, one, neither, everybody, anybody, somebody, something, nothing. Okay? Anyone, anybody, anything, no one, nobody, something, and someone. They are into forms. They can be singular and they can be plural. So, in a plural form, we have both, we have many, we have others, we have several, few, and so. And these are some of this is where I have learned that we really have a challenge when it comes to writing, making use of the indefinite pronouns. You realize that many students, they really have a challenge when it comes to making use of the indefinite pronouns. Please go through and make sure you fix yourself when it comes to making use of the indefinite pronouns. Make sure that, especially when you use the singular, it might look like everybody, you are talking about many, but everybody is. So pick it up, and if you have questions further, you can always consult me. I will say more when I have time. Verb tense. I'm now running out of time. The verb tenses, we have categories given there. We have the present verbs, the past verb, the past participle, irregular verbs, modal, future, transitive versus intransitive, active versus passive, and subject-verb agreement. I'm not really going to spend time because I do not have it that much, but all what I want to tell you is that when we say it is past verbs, it's present verbs. They denote what happened in the present right now. If it is past, they tell us what happened. The action is already completed. The participle is denoted by ed. The irregular verbs, you know, there is always not a constant form of it. It can change that. The modal verbs, they tell us the possibilities. The can, the could, the might, the might. The future, they tell us the action. It's not happening now. It will happen tomorrow, next day, and next week. The transitive and intransitive verbs. Okay? The transitive verbs are verbs used along with an object or a phrase. The verbs that need an object, example, I bought a car, right? And intransitive is the opposite, meaning that it does not need an object. The boy smiled. No object there. And we have the active versus the passive verbs, whereby the active, they tell us who does the action in a sentence. Maria watered the flowers, for example. And whereas the passive, they indicate what has been done to them. For example, what has been done to the object? For example, the flower were watered. By whom? Who watered the flowers? They were watered by Maria. Okay. So, subject-verb agreement, which is an issue also in the English language. Okay. Given the issue of subject-verb agreement, sometimes some books have written it as concord. So, it's the same thing. This means that the verb, the subject, must agree with the verb both in singular and in plural. So it gives us what we say by subject-verb agreement, right? It says that this has to do with the agreement in gender, in persons, and in number. They answer the question of how, when, where. Right. So the subject-verb agreement, they are paying attention to the agreement. Okay, you guys have been signing agreement somewhere, eh? That the verb and the subject and the verb, they should agree. You cannot write a sentence that says they eat porridge. They eat porridge because it's against the rule. That because they eat porridge, that they, which is the pronoun which represents many people, cannot agree, or in that particular instance does not agree with the verb eat, because the rule says when the subject is plural, we do not add the s on the verb. However, if you have done that, then you disobey the rule of subject-verb agreement. Okay, so we quickly have to move on to conjunctions, apostrophe, and articles. The types of conjunctions and their uses. Okay, we first have to start with knowing what a conjunction is. Actually a word that serves the function of linking phrases and words in a sentence. Okay, and it says that it's meant to connect thought, ideas, nouns, and action to make it linked, to ensure that all parts of sentence agrees and they are connected. We do not want that gap, and that gap is filled up by a word called conjunction. There are types of conjunctions. We have the coordinating conjunction. For example, they connect sentences and clauses using words such as and, but, or, yet. And we have the subordinating conjunctions. They join clauses. They join clauses, independent clauses, and they just serve the function of joining the before, even if, and so on. And they are conjunctions of time. They indicate when it happened and when it happened. For example, did it happen last night, or is it yesterday, or when? Okay, That is conjunction types and how to use them. So make sure that if you want to link your thought, idea, connect nouns and action, you must make use of the conjunctions. Okay. And we have we continue with we move on with we have an article there. Articles are words that modify or describes a noun. They are either definite or indefinite articles. When it is definite article, they tell about specific idea, things, persons, or animals. And when it is indefinite, they are general. They speak of any person, place, or a thing. Okay, and the main articles that we have in the English language, we have the and n. Okay, so for example, we can say a pencil. Okay, a pencil. And the use, you must be able to identify the sounds that comes out when you pronounce a word. A pencil. An apple. You know, orthographic apple, sometimes when you write it with a capital letter, the A might lie to you to tell you that it is a capital letter, but the sound that comes out, it is for a vowel sound. For example, when you say an hour, you know, when you look in the orthography, and when I say orthography, I mean writing, hour is written with the H letter, but the H is silent, so we say an hour because then we have a vowel sound that comes out. For example, again, a university, you read out what comes out. It's not really about how you write it, but pay attention to how it sounds. What sounds comes out? Is it a consonant sound or is it a vowel sound? Okay, and when it is a vowel sound, we use n, and when it is a consonant, we use a pencil. Okay, right. I think I have touched on most of the things because time is not on my side. I am to the last slide that is talking about words, sentences, and clauses. That either it is words, the words, they can be simple, they can be complex, and they can be compound. However, I have not seen a clause of words. I've only seen simple words, complex words, and compound words. To say when a word is simple, it has one stem, one morpheme. And when a word is complex, it has when a word is complex, it has a stem plus the suffix. Okay, a stem plus the suffix. There is a part that is added to it, like unsuccessful. The un part, it is a prefix, so it becomes complex. And when it's compound, this word, you would find it is hyphenate, and it consists of two stems. And in this case, for example, we have a flower pot. A word flower pot, there's a hyphen, and the pot can stand on its own, and flower can also stand on its own. Remember, apart from the word, I also said that a sentence can be what? Can be simple, can be complex, can be compound. Okay? When a sentence is simple, it has a subject and a verb, like he ate cake. He, the subject, and ate, the verb. So it is a symbol. When it is complex, a sentence is made out of one or more dependent clause or a complete sentence. Like, while he waited for the train, what happened? So what? While he waited for the train, so what? You must proceed. A compound sentence is a sentence made out of two independent clauses and connected together by a conjunction. For example, I looked down, but the train was late. Okay? And finally, we have a clause, okay, and a phrase. Okay, a clause, a group of words that has a verb and a subject. Because she smiled at him. Okay, because she smiled at him. Thank you. We have come to the end of our presentation for Module 1, English Language. Thank you.